Google Analytics is basically showing you the real-time activity or what's happening on your website. So where your users are coming from, where they are going, what kind of conversions are happening on your websites, what kind of events are going on. You could say which device, which country the users are coming from. So all that information gets recorded in your analytics dashboard. And this becomes a key point for any digital marketer to have it implemented on their site.
This is episode number 6 of the Growth Genius podcast, powered by Infodigit. Welcome, friends, to the Growth Genius podcast. My name is Kaushal Thakkar. I am the founder of Infodigit and your host for this show. Each week, I interview geniuses who have created phenomenal digital growth for their organization. We discuss the key techniques and share insights to help you learn and create your own growth story. Management guru Peter Drucker quoted that you can't manage what you can't measure. I would like to add to it, if you cannot manage something, how would you grow it? Even in the digital world, measurement is the key to success. Today, we are going to dwell into one of the tools of measuring digital growth, a tool from Google itself, Google Analytics. The topic for today's discussion is Google Analytics implementation and attribution challenges. And we are going to learn from our guest how to optimally implement and measure via Google Analytics. Our guest today is Kiran Kurnool, who started his growth journey in 2011 as a marketing and business research analyst in United Kingdom and is now a senior digital specialist at L&T Technology Services working for UAE. An individual who is passionate about video games and believes that it has influenced his thinking in a positive way. He has a constant zeal and passion to learn new digital things, and today we are going to learn from him. Kiran, thank you so much for being on this show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Kaushal. Thanks for asking. And this is a wonderful opportunity for me, and this is my first podcast. And thank you for having me on this show.
Thank you, Kiran. My pleasure. So, Kiran, for our audience who do not know you well, could you help us with your introduction?
Yes. My name is Kiran and work for L&T Technology Services now for a client Huawei. So my journey throughout the career, it started from sales and marketing, and it's gone towards a digital front now. I have worked with multiple brands like Myntra, Bank Bazaar, and currently L&T, and I worked for a Google project as well. So through the process, I've worked with various clients that includes lead generation, e-commerce, sales, all of that, and helped them solve the attribution challenges in terms of ads and SEO, social media networks, all of that. So yeah, this is like one of my brief introduction I can give you.
Kiran, you mentioned about the Google project. Tell us more about it.
Yes. So I was a part of this organization called Regalix. So Regalix is a Google vendor wherein I was a part of a Google project, basically tending to advertisers who had tracking issues when it came to Google Ads. Actually, that was my game changer. I have learned a lot on solving Google Analytics implementation issues, Google Ads issues, what kind of problems advertisers face when it comes to conversion tracking, when it comes to e-commerce tracking. So this was a project solely provided to us by Google. And we had a list of clients whom we used to go on multiple platforms like BigCommerce, WordPress, Shopify, Volusion, and helping advertisers track their conversions effectively through the use of the right tools and platforms.
And at Regalix, you would have helped several other businesses and brands also solve those challenges.
Yes, absolutely. So many of the brands, you could say one of them was Byju's. It was an Indian client. So yeah, we solved some of the attribution challenges for them as well. And we had a lot of clients from NBA, you could say Decathlon Australia. They used to come to us for when they set up their ads and everything. And we used to help them track their conversions in the form of sales, lead generation, or the time spent on a page, all of those aspects onto the ad platforms and the analytics platforms effectively.
Nice. Really good. So, Kiran, coming to the topic of today's session, let us know, how does Google Analytics help?
Absolutely. I don't want to go in really technical here, but I just want to give you a gist of what Google Analytics does. So to the broader audience, Google Analytics is basically showing you the real-time activity or what's happening on your website. So where your users are coming from, where they are going, what kind of conversions are happening on your websites, what kind of events are going on. You could say which device, which country the users are coming from. So all that information gets recorded in your analytics dashboard. And this becomes a key point for any digital marketer to have it implemented on their site.
Very true. And definitely it helps in recording all the customer activities and events. And one of the primary thing would also be the visits or the sessions, that, hey, how many people came onto your website or your app. And that would also be one of the very crucial metrics.
Absolutely.
While we now understand the benefits of implementing Google Analytics, how do you get started with Google Analytics?
Yes. Many marketers are not aware about this in the industry there. So analytics, they just take it as a piece of code and implement it on the website. But what I would say is get first-hand information from your clients before implementing the analytics code on the website. So let's say you're starting new and you are interviewing a client. Get as much as information as possible from them. Like, who are their customers? What's their business segment? Who are they targeting? All of that. And then once it comes to the implementation, before adding the code on the website, I would suggest a few settings that needs to be changed. First thing would be your campaign timeout settings and session settings in, say, your Google Analytics dashboard. It has to be changed and it has to be set according to your business value or the conversion time the customer takes before he reaches the checkout page of your website. Let's say a blog. A blog user might be on your page for maximum 3 to 4 minutes. Yeah. So that would be your session timeout setting. Similarly, for an e-commerce website like Myntra, a normal purchase cycle would be around, let's say, close to 10 minutes. Yeah. So that would be your campaign timeout setting. Usually what happens in Google Analytics is the session timeout and campaign timeout setting is set for 6 months and 30 minutes. So that has to be changed accordingly to your business value. And secondly, in your view filters, you have to make sure that you check the filter that says exclude all bot filters, because there are a lot of competitors in the market who will send you unwanted bot traffic. So that will bloat your e-commerce reports or your analytics reports. So all of those bot traffic has to be blocked by checking that box in the view section of your analytics reports. Post this is done, there is something called referral exclusion list. So if you're running an e-commerce platform, there'll be multiple ways to check out the user. So let's say PayPal or PayUmoney, Ola Money, all of that. So you have to make sure all those referrals are added in the referral exclusion list so that those are not counted. Or else you can have a test view and a normal conversion view for it. Post this is done, then implement the analytics code in the head section of your website. So this would be the steps I would follow.
Perfect. This should help many of our listeners who would like to go into the advanced stage of Google Analytics. But let's consider that there is a small business or a user who's implementing this on a blog website and they're doing it for the first time. And they're not aware about all these technicalities. If they had to implement the most simplest piece of code, how easy or difficult that would be?
I agree that would be a difficult task for a non-technical person because you have to fiddle with the codes, the source code of your website. So the best possible way is to get in touch with a developer. That would be the first piece of advice I would give. Or else, there is a lot of documentation available online from developers.google.com, which gives you in-depth information of how your source code looks and how the code has to be implemented. So if you follow those instructions clearly, you're set in the right place.
Great. Kiran, I was recently implementing Google Analytics for one of our blogs, and I found an easy way out over there is use widgets which are available. Let's say I was on WordPress, and with WordPress, there are widgets to implement Google Analytics really easy. So even if somebody is attempting it for the first time, they could just use this particular widget and incorporate the code. So that's for the initial users, maybe who have not like to go into that depth of Google Analytics, but just want to quickly see what is Google Analytics and how it is going to perform. For them, there is that easy fix of using some plugins available on WordPress. But yes, definitely the advanced users and the people who would like to get more detailed information and more realistic information from the source, I believe what you said would really be a good thing for them to implement.
Yes, absolutely. And I would like to add one point here, Kaushal. Widgets and plugins in WordPress have their own sense of advantages, but there is one disadvantage there as well. Let's say if the widget or a plugin is under maintenance, or the plugin
Yeah.
stops working all of a sudden when you change the theme, there are chances that you might lose the data on your website.
True. Yeah, that's one of the fallback that the user could lose a few minutes or few hours of data.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
So it's better to have a backup before
True.
in
True.
place always. Yeah.
Very true. And what do you think would be the core metrics or the most important metrics? Well, you already mentioned a few in the initial question, but are there more important metrics which the user should ensure that they definitely measure those?
Yes. First and foremost, it would be your average time spent on a page. So it depends on your business again. So if you have a blog post, average time spent on a page is one of the most important metric. And then it would be your bounce rate, exit rate. And if you have an e-commerce website, it would be the transactions where it happened and which countries it's coming from and what are the devices the transactions are happening. And also you have to set up goals. So which I will talk about it later during the further discussion. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Is there any difference between the metrics which we should be measuring on the web versus the app? Well, many of this would be true, the average time spent, bounce rate, exit rate, transactions, but would there be anything different between a web and an app?
App, it would be the number of installs that happen. So how many people actually clicked on the install button and then install the app? And what are the kind of reviews that are coming up? And what are the number of ratings that are coming on your app section? So all of that would matter, yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Kiran, any specific mistakes which usually people make that our audience should ensure that they look out for so that they don't make the same mistake which other people usually make?
Absolutely, Kaushal. So this one is a bit long answer, but I will tell you one of the common pitfalls that many very good marketeers tend to make. Firstly, instead of adding the analytics code on the head section of the website, I've seen so many advertisers adding it in the body section of the website, which is wrong because if you load a website and if the customer doesn't load the website entirely, so the HTML code is read from the top to bottom. And by the time the bottom part of the code is loaded, the analytics code doesn't get loaded and those visits doesn't get recorded in your analytics reports. So it's always advisable to have the analytics code implemented on the head section of the website. Secondly, implementing an analytics code through the head section and also using Google Tag Manager.
Okay.
So what happens is once a page is loaded, there are two analytics codes triggered at one single point of time. So this would hinder your bounce rate reports in your analytics dashboard as well. So this is one other mistake that I've noticed. Thirdly, they do not filter out the internal IP address from the analytics reports. So internal IP filtering is one of the important aspects to make a note of the crucial visits that the customer makes and not your internal employees. Fourthly, instead of adding it on the common header, they tend to go on each and every individual single page and add it on there. And we are humans, we tend to do mistakes. In some cases, if you miss out on some pages, the analytics code will not get recorded on that page and you will not be able to count the visits properly. So it's advisable to add it in one common section where the code gets triggered on every possible page of your website. So these are some of the common mistakes that I've noticed.
And Kiran, one more thing which I would like to ask over there or just share is when I was implementing Google Analytics at one of the organization, what happened is the analytics team implemented so many events on the website. They would put an event for each and every button click, each and every navigation menu where the person clicked. And what happened is they were using the free version of Google Analytics.
Okay.
With this, the events which Google Analytics is recording to differentiate between the free version and the paid version increased, and because of which they were seeing a huge lag in data, and also most of their data was getting sampled. So one piece of advice from my side over there would be that in case the audience is implementing Google Analytics and using the free account, if you don't want to spend much on Google Analytics, at least ensure that you do not create too many events where your core data like the sessions, average time spent on the website, or the exit rate, etc., gets sampled or there is a lag in that. So that's the other thing which I would like to add from my side.
Absolutely, Kaushal. I agree with you on this point.
While you mentioned few of the mistakes, Kiran, what would be the major Google Analytics challenge which you have faced in your life?
Yeah, this is one of the major challenge is to explain to a client as to why the conversion reports are not as what they are trying to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this can be for SEO, your ads, your referrals, anything. It's because analytics reports, you're not supposed to look at the reports as the way the analytics reports show you. You're supposed to slice and dice the data based on the business understanding that you have. I'll tell you one example. Analytics uses a default attribution model called last non-direct click.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say a user came from Facebook today. So he came from an organic search next day. He didn't convert. And third day, he came directly and then converted. So based on the last non-direct click attribution, analytics tends to give all the value to the organic search instead of the original channel, which was Facebook.
Okay.
So based on these reports, the client tends to get angry, stating that, my Facebook channels are not doing good. Organic channels are doing good. And they try to monetize their efforts on organic channel there.
Okay.
So in these cases, what I would suggest is there is one section in your analytics report that's called multi-channel funnel attribution.
Mm-hmm.
I would advise the clients to go there and look at the assisted conversions, like which channel has assisted the conversion in every path of the user journey.
Mm-hmm.
So based on that, they can take some important decisions for their business. And this is one section which is mostly overlooked by majority of the marketeers.
Yes.
Multi-channel funnels is one of the section that has to be used on an everyday basis. That's the advice that I would give.
Got it.
Yeah.
And this was a challenge which you also faced while working at some organization?
Yes, definitely. So this was one at Regalix, actually, what I'm talking about.
Okay, great. So while you mentioned about some people are using Facebook as their initial discovery channel and then moving to organic and then doing a transaction via direct, a message to the listeners, it's quite possible that similarly the user first lands via organic search, then moves to Facebook and then goes via direct. In the later case, the case which I mentioned, the attribution will go to Facebook and not to the organic search, which is the original channel of attribution. So that's where multi-channel funnel is something which is going to help you.
Absolutely. So this is one of the major challenges I have faced, actually.
Yes, that's one of the challenges which I also have faced at multiple organizations. In fact, they get worried about where their visits are coming from, how the users are not coming from a particular channel. And this thing has helped us in clearing many people's doubts.
Absolutely. And then I would like to add one more point here, Kaushal. Apart from this, for e-commerce based websites, there is a necessity to implement cross-domain tracking as well, so that your payment gateways like PayPal, PayUmoney, all of those get excluded from the referral exclusion list. And you get to know your original source of attribution.
Okay.
So this is the one point.
So this would be the second challenge. And what would happen if they don't do it? That's something which is crucial for the audience to understand. When they don't do this cross domain tracking, what would be the pitfall?
I'll explain through a scenario here. Let's take an example of Myntra. The person has reached the homepage. He has browsed through the category pages. He has added a product on their cart, and then they are going to the final checkout page. So once they go to the final checkout page, they have a plethora of options there. So they can check out using the Myntra domain itself, or they can use third-party platforms like PhonePe, PayPal, payment gateways to get their transactions done.
True.
So once they click on that, what happens there is the user is taken from your website to another website, which is PhonePe, which doesn't have the same analytics code that you have implemented on Myntra.com. And then once the user completes the purchase at PhonePe and comes back to your website, analytics tends to show that the visits came from PayPal instead of the original source of attribution. So yeah, by adding PhonePe as a referral exclusion in your report, so it makes sure that that part of the report is not added in your analytics section, and then you get the clear picture of what's happening.
Thank you, Kiran, for sharing this. In fact, for one of my clients, what happened is because of this particular thing not being in place, they were seeing a huge number of visits coming from PayU. And they were surprised that, hey, PayU is giving us so much of conversion. This is the channel where we should spend. I said, okay, PayU is not a channel. We have integrated payment gateway via that. And it was really an insightful thing for them. They were laughing at themselves. That's what they have been thinking about. But yeah, that's an interesting thing which happens in the digital world. And that's where geniuses like you need to help people solve their challenges.
Thanks, Kaushal. Yes, I'm more than happy for that. And yeah, that's what the final point, the summary, what I would put here is, do not look at analytics reports at face value. Always try to understand the business from the client's perspective, and then approach the reports from a logical point of view instead of just looking at it like in the form of numbers.
Could you help us with a real case study over there, or an instance which happened with you where, let's say, you reduced a session timeout because of a particular thing or event which happened,
Yes,
or
absolutely.
anything around the customization which you mentioned?
I'll tell you one real-time example that happened with one of my clients actually. What happened there is, after every 3 seconds, we see a direct visit from Google Analytics that's being generated. So even if the user comes from the organic search, every 3 minutes, there is another session that's getting triggered in the analytics report, and that session is being shown as direct. So we checked the cross-domain tracking, we checked all of the issues, nothing was wrong. So everything was in place. But after days and days of R&D, we came to know that the session timeout settings was set to 3 seconds.
Okay.
So what happens
That's
then?
interesting.
Yeah, what happens there is, for every 3 seconds, there is a new session generated. Or you could say 1 minute, not 3 seconds, 1 minute. For every 1 minute, there is a new session generated. So which is wrong? So
True.
we had to just change that small setting there to know.
And they must be having 90% of the visits coming from direct only in this case.
Absolutely, this was the problem.
The brand team must be really happy with that.
I agree. So yeah, that's what. Again, coming back to square one, do not look at analytics reports at its face value. Always try to analyze various points of view before coming to a conclusion.
Kiran, some of our listeners would be really new to digital marketing and would like to understand what are the kind of channels which people would be able to see once they implement Google Analytics. Any light or information which you could throw on that for those people who are very beginners into Google Analytics?
Yes. When people actually go through Google Analytics, so they'll be actually bombarded with information. Let me be very honest with you. So
Yes, very true.
it's such a huge platform. So even myself, I do not know some intricacies about it. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to learn every day. But yes, there is one section which is called acquisition. So once you go to acquisition, and there is another section called channels. So you'll come to know which channels are getting recorded in your analytics reports. So the first would be organic, second would be direct, third would be referrals, fourth would be social, and fifth one would be other. So other is a channel that's categorized for which analytics is not able to attribute the channel information for.
True.
Yeah.
Kiran, would you have any suggestions for these people who are really new to the digital world and would like to get into the digital industry to work as a digital marketing specialist or any other role in digital?
Yes, Kaushal.
How
Definitely.
can they enter the industry?
So what I would suggest is, so this is my personal point of view. And again, it's a subjective thing which everyone has their own opinion on. My personal opinion is not to go for online classes. I would suggest people to enroll in a live classroom coaching where they get to work on real-time projects with a tutor who is actually personalized for you. So I found most of my strength from there, because I like to name my institute here, which is Online Marketing Institute and Training. And I would like to name two key people here. One is Ravi Kiran and the other one is Guru Raj. They are my mentors here. Because of them, it's because I am in this position right now, even talking to you. Otherwise, I didn't have like proper speaking skills as well. So they have helped me immensely towards the growth of my career by giving me live training and opportunities to work on real-time clients so that I can get to know in and out of digital marketing. My suggestion would be to go for live classes instead of online classes, because online classes tends to be self-paced, and self-paced will make you lazy. Let's be honest here. Nobody wants to just go sit online and study because it makes them lethargic. So it's better to be on toes instead of just learning yourself online.
Got it. And when you say live classes, are this on a face-to-face basis or would this happen online? But yes, there would be a coach who is dedicated to you and who's interacting with you on the internet.
Absolutely. And then some people would have network issues as well. So there is a lot of time involved in, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? So most of the time goes in that. There's a lot of fillers in there. So instead of that, yeah, let's avoid all of that and just enroll in an online class for the same price.
Okay. That sounds good, Kiran. And having said that, you mentioned about two people who you really appreciate and who has contributed to your growth journey. But are there any other people that you follow online
Yes,
or
definitely.
even in offline?
Offline, yes. Online, yes. With many digital marketeers, you have Neil Patel, you have Rand Fishkin, who are gurus for you. But apart from that, offline, yes. I would like to name a few people here. One would be Mr. Rahul. He was my team lead
Mm-hmm.
at Regalix. It's
Mm-hmm.
through him I was able to understand how you can be at ease and how you can be calm when you're talking to clients who are literally shouting to you on the telephonic conversations. I learned the knack of staying calm and quiet and composed to express my view properly.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly was Bank Bazaar. Bank Bazaar, I would like to name Mr. Satpal Singh. He was my team lead. He actually taught me in depth about SEO. There were few things which I wasn't aware of, and he made me aware of all those aspects. And
Nice.
thirdly, at Mintra. Mintra, trust me, this would be, a Tanushree. I had very bad presentation skills, but she taught me how to present a PowerPoint presentation to the appropriate audience. When it comes to a technical person, optimize the presentation for a technical point of view. And when it comes to delivering it to the management, keep it non technical as much as possible. So, this is what
Great.
I've learned. Yeah.
Oh, I hope Tanushri is listening. And if I meet her, I'll pass on the message to her.
Yes, Kaushal. Definitely.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah.
And Kiran, you have worked at several organizations like Bank Bazaar, Mintra, and now at L&T Technologies. How has your role changed? Because sometimes you worked as an analyst measuring things, sometimes you've even worked on the search engine optimization side of it.
Mhm.
So, how has your role changed over the years at different organizations?
So if you actually look at my resume, it starts as an analyst and then it goes to a digital marketing specialist. So it's never been a manager or anything as such. But my role internally inside the organizations have changed in terms of guiding and leading people.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of mentoring them, in terms of giving training sessions, I started as a sales and marketing analyst and then moved to SEO. I'm working for L&T Technologies for a client Huawei, which is for a new IP. And unfortunately, due to the non-disclosure agreement, I cannot divulge much information about that.
No worries.
Yeah.
But at least it's good to hear that there are new IP related work which is happening in India. I'm really happy about to hear that.
Yes.
And when you say you are into this multiple things and you've helped many people learn, what has been that one usual advice which you have given to these people when they're working on it in terms of measuring and doing the analysis? Is there something common advice which you would have given to all of these people?
Yes. So what I've come across is Kaushal in this field, or be it any field, okay? I live by a quote actually. So the quote is, it's a slow process, but quitting won't speeden it up. I would tell this quote to any people in any field because let's be honest, SEO in especially in digital marketing is an extremely slow process. And just because you're not seeing the results and you quit, it doesn't speeden up the process.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyone who is entering a digital field, I would advise them to have loads of patience. If they do not have patience, I would not suggest this field because it involves keyword research, it involves lots of audits, it involves talking to people who do not understand digital marketing, it involves report generation. So, you have to work on a lot of Excel sheets. You have to slice and dice the data. So, if you do not have the patience, I would suggest not to enter this field. So, patience
Yeah.
is the key here.
Better build patience because digital is growing and this is where the job opportunities are
Yeah, yeah, that is
and
the one.
growth is.
Absolutely.
Perfect. And what helps you remain growth focused? Because I've seen you growing from that particular stage you were working as an analyst to today where you're working on new IPs.
Yes.
So, what helps you remain growth focused?
As you mentioned in the introduction earlier, that I have a passion for video games. There is a reason behind that. It's not just I play for the sake of it, but I love the passion and I love the attention to detail the game developers put in the environments and creation of characters.
Mhm.
That's the attention to detail. So, what keeps me focused and what motivates me is the attention to detail that I do in my everyday task. So, there are some things which I miss out on an everyday basis and I learn from others. So, this constant state of learning is what keeping me motivated and going towards and dwelling much more into the digital field, Kaushal.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's nice. Kiran, if you could time travel to the day where you were at the beginning of your career, what would be the advice which your current self will give to that younger version of Kiran Kurnul?
Kaushal, what I would say is if I could time travel myself, let's take it to engineering.
Mm-hmm.
I was always a career oriented person. What I would say is always dwelling into books, 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 books. I wish I had some time for myself as well, Kaushal. That's what I feel.
Okay.
Yeah, it just feels like I have not enjoyed my teenage years of my life that much. And I'm getting to live it now. Yes, that's for sure. But I wish I
Mm-hmm.
had more time enjoying myself also and then studying. So I wasn't able to find the right work, time balance between studies and casual entertainment. With this mindset, I wish I could time travel to the past and just make some changes there.
Yeah, just at least inform your younger self that, hey, maintain a work-life balance.
Yeah.
Cool. Kiran, what we would do now is move into the speeded round where I would request you to answer in maximum 10 words
Yeah, sure.
or lesser, better. Um, so, if not digital, what would you be doing?
Uh, Absolutely. Video game development, design and development.
Which one daily habit has been a game changer for you?
Working out, Kaushal, because I work out not just to keep my body fit and it keeps my mind fit as well. And I tend to not miss out on workouts every day. And this is my advice for everyone.
Great. One thing that you would want to correct in your life?
My level of patience again. So I just want to improve it on an everyday basis. Yeah.
And define Kiran Kurnul in one word.
Passionate, energetic, and a friendly person whom everyone can approach for any sort of problems or anything to share. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it as passionate because that was the first word.
Yeah.
And Kiran, any parting words for the audience that you would like to share?
Parting words for the audience is again, I live by the code, Kaushal, which is please do not quit just because the process is slow. Keep pushing forward for your goals, and there is one point in time. The time will answer all of your problems. So I would suggest not to give up at any point of time, be it how hard the situation may be.
Great.
Yeah.
And that's where I would like to share with the audience the example of the bamboo tree, which takes a long time to grow. But when it spurts out of the ground, it grows really fast and becomes much more taller than many trees. So give yourself the time or give that process a time to bear some fruits, and then definitely you will see more growth coming out of it, like the bamboo tree.
Absolutely,
And
Kaushal.
Kiran, how does the audience stay connected with you?
I am available on LinkedIn. So that is one of the key
Mm-hmm.
places where I'm in constant touch with my audience there. And also, if anyone wants to get in touch with me in person, they can text me on Messenger, Facebook as well. Not a problem.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. So, thank you, Kiran. We learned a lot from you today. Definitely several of the life learning things as well, especially please do not quit because the process is slow.
Yeah.
And we also learned how to pay attention to detail, how to be in that constant state of learning.
Correct.
Thanks a lot for sharing, and thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thanks, Kaushal. Thanks for having me on this show. As I said, this is my first podcast, and I was really thrilled and humbled at the same time for giving me this opportunity, Kaushal.
Thank you. My pleasure. And definitely the audience is going to love listening to you. Thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thank you, Kaushal. Thank you so much. And stay safe, everyone, and take care.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Growth Genius. I hope you learned something today that would help you to grow. If you did, please share this episode with your family and friends. If you're listening to it on the Infodigit website, I would request you to use a podcast app on iPhone or download Google Podcast or Spotify on your Android devices. Subscribing to this podcast will ensure you get the episodes regularly on your phone. The podcast icons near the audio streaming widget on the Infodigit website should help you to navigate to this show on your podcast app. Also, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the Growth Genius Show wherever you are listening to this podcast. It would help you in your growth journey and will also ensure that you do not miss a single episode. Thank you so much for listening. Now go out there and create growth